The Cold War was a time of tension and rivalry. It lasted for almost half a century. The world was divided into two camps. One was led by the United States. The other was led by the Soviet Union. The Cold War was not a hot war. There were no large-scale battles between the superpowers. However, there were many smaller conflicts. These conflicts were called proxy wars. In these wars, each side supported different sides of the conflict. The Cold War had a profound impact on the world. It shaped international relations, influenced domestic politics, and led to the development of new technologies. Understanding the Cold War is essential for comprehending the complexities of the modern world. The Cold War grew out of the ashes of World War II. The US and the Soviet Union had been allies in the fight against Nazi Germany. However, their alliance was one of convenience, not ideology. The US and the Soviet Union had very different visions for the post-war world. The US, a capitalist democracy, wanted to promote democracy and free markets. The Soviet Union, a communist dictatorship, wanted to spread communism around the world. These ideological differences led to mistrust and suspicion between the two superpowers. This mistrust was exacerbated by a number of events, such as the Soviet Union's occupation of Eastern Europe after World War II. The start of the Cold War is often marked by Winston Churchill's famous Iron Curtain speech in 1946. In this speech, Churchill warned of the growing Soviet influence in Eastern Europe. The year 1949 saw the formation of NATO, a military alliance led by the US. This was followed by the formation of the Warsaw Pact in 1955, a military alliance led by the Soviet Union. The division of Europe into two opposing blocs was now complete. The Cold War had truly begun. At the heart of the Cold War was a fundamental clash of ideologies. The US championed capitalism, a system that emphasized individual liberty, free markets, and democratic governance. The Soviet Union, on the other hand, promoted communism, an ideology that advocated for a classless society, state control of the economy, and the abolition of private property. This ideological conflict permeated every aspect of the Cold War, from the battle for hearts and minds through propaganda to the economic competition between the two blocs. The Cold War was a global conflict that involved numerous countries. However, the two main protagonists were the United States and the Soviet Union, the two superpowers that emerged from World War II. The US, with its vast economic and military might, led the Western Bloc. This bloc included countries in Western Europe, North America, and parts of Asia and Latin America. The Soviet Union, with its large military and control over Eastern Europe, led the Eastern Bloc. This bloc consisted of countries in Eastern Europe as well as some countries in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Section 6. Proxy Wars, Battlegrounds of Ideology. The Cold War was characterized by a series of proxy wars, conflicts fought in third world countries where the US and the Soviet Union supported opposing sides. These wars were often brutal and protracted, resulting in immense human suffering. One of the most significant proxy wars was the Korean War from 1950 to 1953, which ended in a stalemate but solidified the division of the Korean Peninsula. Another major proxy war was the Vietnam War, lasting from 1955 to 1975, which ended in a humiliating defeat for the US and its allies. The Cold War also fueled conflicts in Africa, Latin America, and the Middle East, as the superpowers sought to expand their spheres of influence. Section 7. The arms race and space race competition on all fronts. The Cold War was not just a military and ideological conflict, it was also a technological competition. Both the US and the Soviet Union invested heavily in developing new weapons, particularly nuclear weapons. This led to a dangerous arms race, which threatened to destroy the world many times over. The Cold War also extended to space. The Soviet Union shocked the world by launching Sputnik, the first artificial satellite, in 1957. This sparked the space race, a competition between the two superpowers to achieve technological superiority in space exploration. The space race culminated in the US landing astronauts on the Moon in 1969, a major propaganda victory for the West. Section 8. The Thaw and the Fall, the End of an Era. By the 1980s, the Soviet Union was facing serious economic problems and growing internal dissent. The election of Mikhail Gorbachev as Soviet leader in 1985 ushered in a period of reforms known as perestroika, or restructuring, and glasnost, or openness. Gorbachev's reforms, coupled with growing unrest in Eastern Europe, led to the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 and the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. The Cold War was finally over. Section 9. The Legacy of the Cold War, A Changed World. The Cold War had a profound impact on the world, shaping international relations, influencing domestic politics, and leaving a legacy of fear and mistrust. It led to the creation of new technologies, including nuclear weapons, and fostered a climate of espionage and paranoia. The end of the Cold War marked the triumph of democracy and capitalism, but it also created new challenges, such as the rise of ethnic conflicts and the threat of terrorism. The world today is still grappling with the legacy of this era,